Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to have the discussion on the time series and econometric methods of demand forecasting. We know that time is very important dimension of the demand because demand is a variable and it changes with the change of the time. So time series technique is used when the data shows a recognizable particular pattern over time. Each technique of time series analysis uses only the past data or the historical values of a variable to predict the values. Here, the basic assumption is that the historical behavior of the variable is going to be repeated in the future. In the time series analysis, we try to decompose the whole impact of different factors on the variable. So we divide the components of the time series analysis into four basic categories. One is the trend, second is the seasonal variation, third is cyclical variations, and fourth is the random fluctuations. What is trend? In the long term, we find that a particular variable changes in a typical pattern. If that pattern is going to be repeated in the future, with that sort of assumption, we basically try to use trend for the future prediction of a variable. In demand forecasting, if we find a particular trend in the behavior of the variable, then we use that trend for the prediction of the future demand. The second component of the time series analysis is the seasonal variation. The seasonal variation basically is related to the change of the demand in relation to a season. So during a year, there will be different seasons, and in different seasons, the demand for a particular good will be undergoing a change, and that will be happening in a typical pattern. So it will be observing that particular pattern, and we basically figure out that the change is taking place in that particular pattern and which is due to the change of the season. Then we can use that particular pattern for the prediction of the future demand. Coming to the cyclical variations, when we were using the seasonal component and we were trying to observe the change in the demand within a year. Here, in the cyclical variation, generally we take the time period which is more than a year, and we find that the typical good will be experiencing a change in terms of the demand over the years in repetition. So here the goods demand can be observed, and if we find that a cycle is being created because it is repeating itself in regular interval of time, then we can take it as a cyclical component and we can use it to predict the behavior of the demand in the future. Finally, the random fluctuations, which is totally different from the seasonal variation, trend, and the cyclical variation. This is a kind of residual change which we generally use for prediction of the future value of the demand, but we cannot use any kind of formula for predicting the future value. Coming to the econometric method, there are different econometric methods which are used to predict the future demand. There are certain advantages in the econometric method because they do have the forecasting and also they explain the phenomenon to us. In econometric method, we also know the direction as well as the magnitude of the change. There may be different types of econometric models. We can use a linear model, we can use a non-linear model, we can also use other types of model. But we will be taking a very simple example of single equation econometric model here. We will be taking QD to represent the quantity demand or quantity demanded or demand of a particular commodity, and we can relate this demand with several other independent variables. So the model can be built like this through a simple linear equation. We can write Qd is equal to A plus B1 Px plus B2 Pc plus B3 Py plus B4 Ad, where Px is the own price of good X, Pc is the price of a competitive good, Y is disposable per capita income of the people, Ad is the advertisement expenditure by the farm, a is a constant term. Similarly, B1, B2, B3, B4, all these are the coefficients of independent variables. So we can estimate all these values and we can put all those values for the prediction of the future demand. So we can do it practically by collection of data and also by accommodating different figures to this particular model. This can be very interesting and this can also help us to make the plan for the future.